If you're a good DJ, you can play techno to a house crowd and house to a techno crowd. Club culture is definitely being affected by videoing. People aren't going to like this, but also, fuck everyone, I'm going to do it in my own way. I was a real raver back then.
So you're from Belfast, right?
Yes, I'm from Belfast, but I moved from Dundee to Berlin. Beautiful city in Scotland, and that is where I kind of had my musical education. I learned how to DJ there. I fell in love with like house music there, and yeah, just like rave culture.
So people rave hard in
Yeah, in Scotland, yeah. It's a huge, deep rave culture there for sure.
What moment were you like, okay, I'm at the rave, I'm gonna DJ
I'm at, yeah,
because
exactly.
I have exceptional music taste?
Well, that was it. I was just obsessed with music, and I was obsessed with being at the very front of the dance floor at every single night, no matter what. And like that was just like where I went, you know, like I was a real like raver back then. There was like me and a core crew of people there who just were obsessed with music, and we were all like sharing music all the time, and like it became quite competitive in a way, you know. And then that kind of naturally led to wanting to learn how to mix, and me and my friend who used to live with Becky, also used to DJ together. We got a pair of turntables and just learned how to mix.
Okay.
Our friend Jamie taught us how to mix one day, and then from then on we were just like doing it every day. Yeah, we were both very nerdy together and very neurodivergent together. We found each other, you know.
Yeah.
And it just worked, and yeah, it was nice to share that experience with someone at the start, and there was like no pressure, you know. We were in it because we were obsessed with it. We weren't thinking at that point like this is going to be my job. Like never did that ever come in my mind. Never did I even want to make money from it at that point. Like it just wasn't, that just didn't come into to my mind. It was just passion, and a really, also the club there, the reading rooms. I'm always talking about the reading rooms. Unfortunately it's not there anymore, but that was like the club where I learned everything, and we used to go there every week, and that's where we ran our night together.
Okay. And
in the end,
when did the idea arrive that you should move to Berlin?
Yeah, so
it sounds like you were really happy
there. I was, yeah,
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like I could have just stayed there. I could have stayed there forever. I could still be there, which also would have been great, you know. But because I loved it there, and every time I go back there, I feel like I'm at home. But there was definitely something inside me that knew I needed to be surrounded by music on a larger scale. I wanted to go and find out like what was going on in other parts of the world where music was maybe taken a little bit more seriously. Not that it's not taken seriously there, but culturally, you know, there's a deep rave culture here, and you know, in places like the Netherlands and other places in Europe, and I just wanted to go and kind of discover that. And
where you're like not like it's, I don't know, you're one of the many versus like one of the few.
Yeah, and I feel like at a certain point in places like Scotland, well, not so much Scotland, but the UK and Ireland, generally UK, Ireland, Scotland, people kind of reach a certain age and then they're like, oh, I'm not going out anymore, or that's like deemed as yeah, you're too old to do that or something, you know, which isn't a thing in Europe. Like it's totally acceptable. So I think there was maybe a little bit of that, but I also just wanted to discover, and I also had the goal of moving to Berlin to make music. So cliche, but yeah, that was in my head, and I was working 2 jobs at the time, full time in one place and part time in another place, and then DJing at the weekend, and I was just like saving to move. I moved here and stayed in like hostels and Couchsurfing, you know, Couchsurfing.
Oh yeah, wow.
Which we did, so we had like people to stay at ours a lot in Dundee, who like, so we were part of the Couchsurfing community, so it was actually really helpful, you know. But yeah, that's what I did when I first moved here. I just literally wung it, and then when I was staying in the hostel, I met a guy who was working in a bar, and they needed people, so that was like my first job here, and then everything kind of escalated from that. Yeah, but like I feel like like looking back on that, like I would be like, never do anything like that,
Couch,
you know?
Couchsurfing to the top.
Yeah, well, you heard it here first.
But your first record, because you have your own record label now.
Yes.
One of my favorites.
Thank you.
Wait, the whole backstory of Big Saldo.
Yeah.
Where does that
Big
come
Saldo,
from?
yes. So that actually, I think people in Dundee were calling me Big Saldo before I left.
Okay.
A lot of variations of Saldo, like Saldrin, Big Saldo. What else did they call me? Anyway, the Big Saldo kind of nickname, I guess. Oh, it's not really a nickname. It is me. Like, I am Big Saldo, but it kind of comes out more when I'm maybe a little bit on it, or also kind of it translates to my DJing and my producing. It's like kind of hard hitting, like big energy, you know, like Sally C's maybe a bit more subdued.
She contains multitudes. So when did you start the record label? Also, what inspired you to do that? Because I feel like that's such a huge feat, and people don't talk about that enough. And so many DJs do that, and I'm like, with what time and how, and also it's expensive. And
it is, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was a long time coming. I think for me, sorry, I keep touching this.
It's extremely stroke the furry wall.
It really is. Yeah, so I think my obsession with vinyl like ran really deep for so many years, and I always envisioned having like my own record. And by the time that I was comfortable enough with my own music, like when I started to play it out and I started to like be like, okay, cool, actually people like this is good. I was just like, it was two things. I didn't want to send my music to anyone because I didn't think anyone was going to like it. But then I also kind of thought I could just do this myself, you know? So there was a little bit of both. There was a little bit of like, people aren't going to like this, but also fuck everyone, I'm going to do it in my own way, you know? Okay. And I'm so glad I did, because it's like creative control, full creative control, and it's kind of grown in a really nice way. And so that was in 2020, so the pandemic, so that's, I had time, you know, and I was making a lot of music for years before that, up until that point, and then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh my god, that is possibly the worst timing ever. But it actually kind of worked in my favor, I guess, because it gave me a little bit more time to like A&R sides to the label, you know, and I was like very much, it was like all of my attention. Whereas like if I started a label now, I fucking wouldn't have time, you know. Oh yeah, it was good timing. I think everything is all about timing.
How do you know if you were the only judge of like the tracks, essentially full creative control from the beginning? How could you decide like when something's finished, or like if it was good enough to be one of the, I don't know, 4
well, yeah, I play them out. Oh well, yeah, true. That was like during the pandemic.
Just gut.
That is my method though, when I'm trying to decide on a track. But I'm not too picky with like finishing a track. Like I'll either start a track and just like then leave it and never go back to it again, or I'll bash it out. I'm quite good at just like kind of bashing it out, and I'm quite happy with it. Definitely play a lot of different genres when I'm DJing, but I have a deep, deep, deep love for house music.
And because I feel like in Berlin, it's, or at least in my experience, like I'm not going to house music parties. I feel like there's not that much of a culture of it here.
No.
How has it been for you, like navigating that?
Well, I don't play so much in Berlin.
As every DJ who lives in Berlin.
We used to do parties here, like in Griessmuehle, when Griessmuehle was still open.
R.I.P.
I know, it was such a great club.
What was the party called?
We call it Waffles because we all like waffle a lot, you know, like waffling.
Waffle about.
Just waffling about shite, basically.
Got it. What is is there a difference in the crowd, kind of? Do you feel like a house crowd is, for example?
Yeah. I don't think that you can determine like the vibe of a crowd from the genre. I think a crowd is the crowd is so different everywhere.
Okay.
You know, and there's so many factors that make a crowd a certain crowd, and you know, a DJ, it's all kind of coming from the DJ. If you're in a space that maybe plays a little bit harder music, if you're a good DJ, you can play techno to a house crowd and house to a techno crowd and all, you know. So it's not so much specifically different crowds. I think there's a lot of factors that make up what a crowd is, you know. Yeah. And especially here it's so good because there's like the no phone policy. I think that's like the number one thing, is just makes it so much better.
But you play mostly not here, so
whenever someone has their phone up at me, or like some people are like passing near their phone all the time, and I'm just like, what are you doing? I'm actually just trying to make you have a good time. Like, give me a second. But I'll just, if someone's annoying me with their phone, I just take it. I'm like, oh, let me see, and I just take it and put it on the turntable and wait for them to have a little moment, you know, scold them. If someone is being annoying with their phone gets confiscated.
I love that policy. Yeah. That's a policy as well.
Yeah. It goes well most of the time. One of the times it didn't go too well though. There was a guy and he was very annoyed.
Oh my god.
It was kind of funny.
How do you feel about the whole like must have video content situation?
Not growing up, but you know, I've been here for 9 years and like DJing and running those parties and playing a lot in Berlin before I was like touring a lot. It was like forbidden, you know, like it's just not part of the culture here. So whenever I started to tour more, you asked that question earlier, by the way. I think I started to tour in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, 2017, 2018 is when I would have started. So I feel like coming from that and being so, because it's like offensive almost, you know, it's not in me, and I'm also not at that. I'm like a little bit older as well, not a little older, but I'm not so like in the Gen Z world of like filming and stuff. So I just don't care enough about it, and I don't you know, whenever someone has a camera, whenever there's a videographer, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like, it makes me feel like, I'm like, what do you, like when it's in front of me especially, I'm like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, it's just, you have to kind of just ignore it, you know? Yeah. So club culture is definitely being affected by videoing, and also the pressure for DJs to have like videographers these days and like filming all of this stuff. Like, I just don't have that. I just, you know, you have to spend a lot of money if you want to like have a videographer with you all the time and getting that like perfect content and like the hands in the air. And to be honest,
that's big drop.
That's not what, and that's
crazy.
Yeah,
like, that's crazy. It's changing the way people mix.
I feel like the intent is changing. Instead of delving for a connection and an overall journey with the crowd, it's more tailored to these big moments so that people can get the content, you know?
Digital first.
Yeah, that's it. And it's really scary actually, and I can't keep up. I really can't.
I think we should play Truth or Dare.
Truth or Dare, go. Oh my god.
Yes.
Naughty.
Which I haven't played since middle school. Sally C. Truth or Dare?
Dare.
Okay. Okay, well, I dare you to take a tequila shot with me.
Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. Truth or Dare?
Oh, okay. Shall we do truth? Let's do truth.
Let's go truth. When was the last time you cried?
Today.
No!
Yeah. I had therapy.
Okay, that's a good space to
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that was the last time I cried.
Okay. I'm happy that it was in a productive space.
It was.
I cried today too.
Yeah. This job definitely makes me cry sometimes.
Just exhaustion.
Exhaustion and confusion and not knowing, sleep deprivation, not knowing what's going on. But I actually brought a friend with me this summer, Lauren, and that was like a game changer. So
truth or dare?
Truth or dare?
I'll give you both.
Okay, go.
Truth? What color underwear are you wearing?
I'm not wearing any underwear.
If you had to play a song at this after hour right now, what would it be?
Ooh. I would play a chunker right now.
Yeah.
Which could be anything. Not just my music.
No, but if you know, you know.
Yeah.
Something sounds like a chunker.
Big
but how
time.
would you define that?
I think that's like it's definitely translated into the music I produce, and a chunker is a beefy, fat, bass heavy track, and it has three important elements: the Holy Trinity, slick banging drums, a really chunky bass line, and like a weird vocal. That's like the holy trinity of a chunker.
That is an almost scientific definition, and I thought you were just going to answer kind of in vibe language, but that is so specific, and I'm really happy we got there.
Yeah.
So you play,
That's a chunker, and like that is what my sound is. It's very chunky. The bass lines are very heavy and fat and kind of in your face. Like the mixing side of things is a little bit hard because I want the bass line to sound so loud and so like fat that it kind of takes away from other elements. So I do have to be careful sometimes, but I just want it as chunky as possible, you know?
I just find that refreshing.
Good.
I feel like that's a wrap. Thanks for coming to the after hour, which is exceptional.
Yummy.
I can never be a DJ. Drinking tequila every single. Anyway.